So the Mammoth Lakes area is in California, and you mentioned it's right by Yosemite National Park.
Yep.
To the north and northwest, with the John Muir Wilderness to the south. And if you've been a listener to our shows, I'm sure you've heard those names come up multiple times. For whatever reason, it's just seeming more and more like California is not where you go if you don't want to go missing. And now angry California comments for hikers. No,
I mean, yeah, that's just because they have so many amazing national parks.
Yeah, it's huge. They have a ton of national parks. The national parks they do have are giant. So I think they're unlucky because of their size.
And this actually, the area we're talking about is not a national park. It's a wilderness area. But this gentleman did a lot of climbing all over the region. So he was in Yosemite. He was in the wilderness area. He was in the John Muir Wilderness area. So while, Joe's going to go through the location profile of kind of the Ansel Adams Wilderness area, but just understand that he was hiking and climbing kind of all over this region.
Yeah, he was like a pro.
Yeah.
So he was going everywhere he could. So the area we're talking about, the Mammoth Lakes area, which includes the Ansel Adams area and those other kind of areas we talked about, that's a generalization of where we're talking about. It was formed in 1964, and it's very heavily used. So there's about 30 million people that live within a few hours drive of this area. So it's going to be high traffic. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be desolate. However, the formations are more, Mars-like scape, it almost looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, it is an expansive, rugged terrain. So, I mean, you are kind of out there, but yeah, this whole area sees a lot of tourist activity.
Yeah, it's a Mediterranean climate showing with most precipitation falling in a mild winter, and other seasons are nearly dry with less than 3% of precipitation falling in the long, hot summers. So it's dry, rocky. I just saw it when I was looking at the pictures of it. I'll pull them up. It just kind of looks like, if it were all red, it looks like the images that get sent back from Mars.
Yeah.
With a few trees, obviously, in some of the areas, but just
and
looking
it does,
at the tops.
We were just talking about how we generalize some regions. It does look a lot like Yosemite in spots too.
Okay, so like in the valleys where you have like the evergreens and stuff?
Yeah, because like Mammoth Lakes is actually only 30 miles away from Half Dome, so it's not very far. And so, they all share the same kind of climate and terrain, but there are areas of the Ansel Adams Wilderness that are just absolutely rugged and a climber's paradise.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
So the Ansel Adams Wilderness has an elevation from 3,500 to 13,157 feet, forming the northern end of the High Sierras, and it includes the Ritter Range, which includes Mount Ritter, Banner Peak, and the Minarets. Ritter Range, the Minarets, and the peaks of the Mount Ritter and Banner Peak can be seen from all over Mammoth Lakes. They are composed of metal volcanic rock, which was formed in several volcanic supereruptions, which means they form spiky landforms and make life difficult for climbing as they flake apart easily. So you think about like loose volcanic rock. And they almost look like, when you pour wet sand in a pile and it kind of molds over it. That's kind of where it looks like a bunch of those.
Yep.
So 34% of the wilderness is in the Inyo National Forest. 54% of it is in the Sierra National Forest, and less than 1% covers the Devil's Post Powell National Monument. So it's just some of the animals in the area. There are black bear, which you should take very seriously.
No grizzlies.
No grizzlies. There's no grizzlies in California. Mike asked. I assumed I was wrong.
We were wrong. We should have known that.
We should have, and now we will never forget it.
Yes.
There are bighorn sheep. I'd say the type of danger there is they'll knock you off the ridge if they want to. Mountain lions and mule deer. So you do have the cats and the black bears. Outside of that, not too much of a big animal threat.
Yeah.
Especially while climbing. I mean, then you only run into some sheep. And the few areas I've been climbing or gone where sheep are, they're just not running around.
No, they'll avoid you.
Yeah. So the terrain, as we said, the Ansel Adams Wilderness contains substantial area above the tree line. So most of it is at approximately 9,600 feet to 10,400 feet. So I think that's very significant when we're talking about potential danger and things like that. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're talking about a guy like Matt, who's experienced, maybe not as much, but it's still, I think, a factor.
Yeah, I mean, once we get into more about Matt, you'll find that he was probably the most experienced hiker and climber we've ever done a case on. I was telling Joe before we started recording, it'd be similar to What was the guy's name in the National Geographic?
Alex Honnold.
It'd be similar to if he went missing.
Yeah.
This guy was obviously not that skilled. He wasn't a free climber, but he climbed a lot.
He's been out in the wilderness, and when you're doing it that much, you've come across many situation where you learn either doing the wrong things or the right things. And so it's the type of person you go, okay, if they've come across something, they should know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so to sum it all up, if I'm going to talk about the dangers, lack of shelter at higher elevations, I'll say unpredictable weather patterns, just because when you're at an altitude with no trees potentially around above the tree line, and then other various terrain hazards.
I think terrain hazards probably in this location is the highest risk, even for an experienced hiker or climber. I think.
Yeah, if you're putting
accidents
cams in
happen.
that rock, or even if they're bolted but it's flaky.
Yeah.
This is now I'm going into opinion territory because I climb, but I've never climbed in this type of rock.
Yeah.
I don't know if they bolt them or not. So if they don't, he's using nuts and cams. I could imagine if you have stuff that can flake off and you experience a fall, that could be really bad.
Yeah.
So I would say, I agree with you. I'd say terrain's probably the most hazardous, only because of his experience.
Yeah.
So difficulty in general, this entire wilderness contains 349 miles of hiking trails, including portions of John Muir and the PCT or Pacific Crest Trail. And the Ritter Range is very challenging and would not be impossible to die on the steeper parts. So the metavolcanic rock that we talked about can be very difficult for the climbers, and it's also slippery. So that's the one thing it's saying here, which is completely different from like a granite mountain nearby.